Hey, welcome to Wonder Why, where we explore the whys of the world. My name is Alex, and we will get into today's topic. Why does my phone know my exact location? You open the map, and before your thumb has even settled on the glass, there it is. The little blue dot, sitting exactly where you're sitting on a planet with a surface area of roughly 200 million square miles, pinned to within a few footsteps. And you never think about it until one day, you do. How does this slab of glass in your hand with no window, no eyes, no idea which way is up instantly know it's here and not 4,000 miles that way? Here's the part that sounds made up. The answer is floating 20,000 kilometers over your head. It's a choir of atomic clocks in space singing the time, and your phone is quietly eavesdropping on all of them at once. It is genuinely one of the most beautiful invisible machines humans have ever built, and almost nobody knows it's running. So let's pull the lid off. Stay with me, because the twist at the end changes how you think about the whole thing. So, first, what's actually up there? Circling the planet right now is a fleet of satellites we call GPS, about 24 of them in the core setup, with a handful of spares, so usually 30 something are switched on and working at any moment. They fly in what's called medium Earth orbit, roughly 20,200 kilometers up. That's about 12,500 miles. Way, way above the space station, way below the moon. And they're arranged so that from almost anywhere on Earth, at almost any time, you've got a clear line to at least four of them overhead. That wasn't luck. Somebody sat down and did that geometry on purpose so that a person standing in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere could always find a few. Now, here's the important bit, and it's the whole ball game. Each of these satellites is essentially a flying clock, an extremely absurdly good clock. Every satellite carries about four atomic clocks on board, the kind that keep time by counting the vibrations of atoms and are accurate to somewhere around a billionth of a second. And they have to be that good because in this system, time is distance. If one of those clocks were off by just 1/100th of a single second, a blink you couldn't even perceive, it would throw your location off by around 1,800 miles. That's not wrong street, that's wrong country. So these satellites don't really tell you where you are. They do something much simpler and much weirder. They just constantly tell you what time it is. Here's what each satellite is actually broadcasting over and over forever. A tiny message that basically says, "Hi, I'm this specific satellite. Here's my exact position in space, and here's the precise time I'm sending this." That's it. It's not aimed at you. It's not aimed at anyone. It's just shouted out in every direction, endlessly like a lighthouse made of time. Those messages travel at the speed of light, about the fastest thing there is, which is fast, but it is not infinite. It takes a tiny, measurable sliver of time to fall from orbit down to your pocket. And that little delay is the entire secret. Because your phone knows what time the message said it was sent, and it knows what time it arrived. Subtract one from the other, and you get how long the signal was traveling. Multiply that by the speed of light, and boom, you now know exactly how far away that satellite is. Not the direction, just the distance. Now, one distance alone is not enough. If you only know you're, say, 12,000 miles from satellite number 7, then you could be anywhere on a giant invisible bubble that far out from it. Helpful-ish, not exactly. So your phone listens to a second satellite. Now you're on the surface of two bubbles at once, and two bubbles only overlap in a ring. Add a third satellite, a third bubble, and that ring collapses down to basically two possible points, one of which is usually out in space or deep underground, so your phone politely ignores it. That's the trick. Overlapping spheres of distance squeezing down to one spot. It has a name: trilateration. And notice what nobody did. Nobody measured an angle, nobody pointed anything at you, nobody took a picture. People call it triangulation, but it's really just a very fancy way of being late. But there's a catch, and it's a sneaky one. This whole method depends on your phone knowing exactly what time it is, down to the billionth of a second, so it can measure those delays. And your phone does not have an atomic clock in it, obviously. It has a cheap little quartz clock, the kind in a supermarket wristwatch. Compared to a satellite, your phone's sense of time is a toddler guessing. So if your phone's clock is even slightly off, all three of those distance bubbles are slightly wrong, and they don't meet cleanly. You'd get a blurry blob instead of a dot. which is where the genuinely clever move comes in. Your phone listens to a fourth satellite, and now it has one more clue than it strictly needs, which it uses to check its own homework. There's only one true time that makes all four distances agree at a single point, so the phone just solves for it. It quietly figures out the exact correct time and your exact position in the same move. Your $2 clock borrows accuracy from four atomic clocks in space for free several times a second, which is why you need at least four satellites for a proper three-dimensional fix: latitude, longitude, and altitude. Three to place you, and a fourth to fix the fact that your phone is, chronologically speaking, a bit of an amateur. Okay, now for the part that should not be real, but is. This entire system, the one guiding your pizza to your door, only works because it takes Einstein into account directly, on purpose, every single day. See, those satellites are in a genuinely strange situation. Time-wise, it's two things are happening to their clocks at once. Because they're zipping along at thousands of miles per hour, Einstein's special relativity says their clock should run a little slow. That costs them about 7 microseconds a day. But because they're way up high, where Earth's gravity is weaker, his general relativity says their clock should run a little fast, and that gains them about 45 microseconds a day. Add those together, and every day, each satellite's clock drifts about 38 microseconds ahead of the clocks down here, 38 millionths of a second, which sounds like the most ignorable number in the universe. Except remember, in this system, time is distance. So if the engineers just ignored Einstein, that tiny daily drift would push your location off by about 10 kilometers every single day. Your blue dot would slide 6 miles across town by lunch and keep going. Your navigation would be useless within hours and completely deranged within a week. So they cheat. Before these satellites ever launch, engineers deliberately set their clocks to tick a touch slow, knowing that once they're up there, relativity will speed them right back up to correct. They're essentially prepaying Einstein a tax on the ground so the numbers come out perfect in orbit, which means every time you follow the little arrow home, a 100-year-old theory about space and time is quietly, invisibly working. No wonder it feels like magic. It's basically a physics exam running in the background of your commute. Quick pause. If the phrase, "there are atomic clocks in space bending time for my food delivery," is currently rearranging your brain, do me a tiny favor, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel reach more curious people. It's completely free, and unlike GPS, it doesn't require a working knowledge of relativity. Okay, because there's still one big question. Back to it. Here's something that should bug you. Finding four faint whispers from space, doing all that math, that should take a while. And on the very first old GPS units, it did. A cold start where a march from scratch could take 30 seconds or more of standing there like a lost tourist while it hunted for satellites. So, why does your phone do it what feels like instantly? Because your phone cheats beautifully. It's called assisted GPS, and the assist comes from the internet. Instead of waiting to slowly learn where every satellite is from the satellites themselves, your phone just downloads a cheat sheet over your cell or Wi-Fi connection, a little schedule of where all the satellites are supposed to be right now. So instead of searching the whole sky blind, it knows exactly where to listen. And that 30-second wait collapses to a couple of seconds. And it doesn't stop there. Your phone is greedy. It blends several location tricks at once. It's got the satellites, sure, but it also quietly notices which Wi-Fi networks are around you because vast databases already know roughly where millions of specific routers physically live, and it knows which cell towers it's talking to. It mashes all of that together into one best guess, which is also why your accuracy is all over the place. Standing in an open field under clear sky, real GPS nails you to within about 5 meters, a couple of car lengths. But walk into a downtown of glass skyscrapers, and the signals start bouncing off buildings before they reach you, arriving late, lying about the distance. That's the dreaded urban canyon, and it's why your dot suddenly thinks you're a block over inside a building facing the wrong way. In there, your phone leans harder on Wi-Fi, good to maybe 15 to 40 meters, and on cell towers, which alone can be off by hundreds of meters. Your blue dot isn't lying to you. It's just doing improv with whatever clues it can grab. So now the question everyone's really been sitting on. If all these satellites can find me this precisely, are they watching me? Is this thing tracking me from space? And here is the twist, the part almost nobody realizes. No, they can't. GPS satellites are one way. They only ever broadcast. They shout the time into the void and they never, ever listen. Your phone does not talk back to them. It cannot. The satellites do not know you exist. They don't know how many phones are using them, 1,000 or 1,000,000,000, because receiving their signal is completely invisible to them. Read that again because it flips the whole story. The satellites never find you. You find you. Your phone eavesdrops on a public broadcast and works out its own position privately, right there in your hand. GPS, the actual space part, is one of the least creepy technologies ever built. It's a free, generous public utility that has no clue who's listening. So where does the spooky feeling come from? Not from space, from the ground, from the apps. Because the instant your phone has calculated that lovely private little dot, some app can ask for it and then send it off somewhere to a company, a map service, an advertiser, a whole quiet industry that buys and sells location data. That's the part worth paying attention to. Not the physics, permissions. And that's weirdly good news because it means the part you can't control, the beautiful machine in the sky, isn't the threat. And the part that is worth minding is exactly the part you can touch. Which apps you let see the dot and when. The satellites are a gift. What happens to your location after your phone figures it out is a choice, mostly quietly yours. So the next time that little blue dot snaps into place before your thumb even lands, remember what actually just happened. 4 flying atomic clocks, 20,000 kilometers up, each shouted the time. Your cheap phone caught those whispers, measured how late each one was by a hair, drew 4 invisible bubbles, squeezed them to a point, and corrected for Einstein while doing it. In about a second. It never saw you, it never chased you, it just filled the sky with the time and let you find yourself in the echo. Honestly, once you know how it works, that little blue dot stops feeling like surveillance and starts feeling like one of the quietest, most generous miracles we walk around ignoring every single day. So, what's the everyday piece of magic you use constantly and never once questioned? Drop it in the comments. It might be the next video. And if this finally made that little dot make sense, do me one last favor. Hit like and subscribe, because the whole point of this channel is turning how does that even work into, oh, that's how. See you in the next one.